Okay, so I did a quick video, would have been about a week ago now, in regards to my three final locations for relocation. And I had Bulgaria, location within Bulgaria undecided, but Bulgaria, Thailand's stroke Philippines, and Da Nang in Vietnam. So I want to put a very quick video out there about just how cheap it is to live in Da Nang, Vietnam, compared to the UK. Now, obviously, you're not stupid. You know that Southeast Asia is going to be more affordable. That's obvious. We all know that without even looking at the numbers. But I don't think you know how much more affordable. So, Da Nang in Vietnam, it's often mentioned as being the Miami of Southeast Asia. It is one of the more affordable cities in the whole of Southeast Asia, if not the world. You've got beautiful coastlines that literally stretch for miles. You've got a growing expat American and British community. You've got very good infrastructure. In fact, Wi Fi is mostly free across Da Nang. But it's important to realize that cheap doesn't mean same as UK cheap. So here's what living in Da Nang looks like side by side with living somewhere like Portsmouth, which is quite close to me, maybe 100 miles away, or London, which is about 200 miles away. So I want to illustrate what you gain, what you lose, and whether it looks worth it. So the first thing and the most important thing, the biggest thing that anybody cares about when they look at relocating is the cost of housing and rent. It's the biggest part of any of your expenditure wherever you live. And in Da Nang, that's no exception. So in Da Nang, a decent, modern one bed apartment, which is in or near the city centre, and by near, I mean within 5 miles, you might pay the equivalent, and this is modern, you might pay the equivalent of around 300, £350 a month for a two bed, nearer 500 a month. So it does obviously depend a little bit on the standards and the amenities and how modern it is, and also what floor you're on if it's an apartment. But if you live further out, then you pay much less than that. If you're willing to live 10 miles away, 15 miles away with a bit of a commute or a bike ride or a tuk-tuk ride, whatever you want, you can actually get the same for about 250, 300. So to contrast that with the UK, in Portsmouth, um, any mid-sized city, a similar flat, one bed, you're looking at £600-700. London, forget about it, £1,200. So these are ballpark numbers. The exact figure obviously depends on location, but it's much more affordable, of course. And if you go on YouTube and you look at apartment tours in Da Nang, you can see just how modern the apartments are. In regards to things like utilities, like your water, your electric, your gas, your internet, generally it's much cheaper. And things like utilities in an average sized apartment, one bed, large one bed, two bed, that kind of thing, you're looking at £42 per month. So that's your electric, your water, and your internet all included. And if it's an apartment, they've usually got maid service, which actually comes round as if it was a hotel and cleans once a week for free. That's incredible. Your mobile phone is going to be about £4 a month for a mobile phone. That again is incredible. And 5G covers much of Da Nang as well. So I mean that's mental cheap. When you think the cost of utilities over here, it's infinitely more. I mean, mine is nearer like 300, 350 a month for gas, electric, and water, and then you add a mobile phone for me and my partner, that's probably another, what, 60 quid? Maybe 50 quid. So we're looking at maybe 400 plus a month, going down to 10% of that. It's bonkers. It is bonkers. Food and groceries. Now, obviously, food and groceries, you'd expect it to be cheaper at things like local markets, and it is. But even street food, Vietnamese eateries and street food vendors are massively cheap. A street meal can cost you £1. They do things that are basically Subway rolls from street vendors called banan buns, and they're basically foot-long subs filled with meat, filled with steamed cabbage and all the rest of it, a quid. Mental. Local produce is obviously inexpensive. Imported goods, if you want European cheeses like brie, camembert, or you want your pot noodle brand rather than their own, shin noodle, something like that, it's going to cost you more money. Of course it is, because there's an import fee there. But despite the fact that these UK branded items are going to be similar or maybe even a little bit more when compared to the UK, there are South Asian alternatives that are absolutely every bit as good, if not better. So if you eat like a local and you're willing to, have Western meals maybe once or twice a week, your food bill comes down massively. Rather than spending maybe 400 a month on food, your food bill, you're looking at maybe 50 to 60 pounds a month. And again, that's incredible. It's about 12%, 13% of what you spend over here. So a supermarket shop for things like the basics, rice, vegetables, meat, eggs, it's going to cost about 80% less of what a similar basket or trolley would cost you in the UK. And as I said, it depends on how much imported product is there. But I mean, wow, that's an eye opener. Transport is another thing. Transport and mobility. Now, Vietnam runs on mopeds, literally runs on mopeds. They're everywhere. And you can hire a moped for literally £2 a day. You can run a scooter for about £10 a month if you buy one, and it is very often cheaper to buy one on Facebook Marketplace over there. You could put £10 worth of fuel in a scooter, and if you're not traveling miles and miles, it'd probably last you a month. Again, that's incredible. When you think what an EV costs to run in terms of buying it, in terms of very soon taxing it, all the other costs of elevated servicing despite having fewer moving parts, and then the cost of the electric, a moped is the way forward. But even the public transport or taxi rides are incredibly cheap. Incredibly cheap. So, ride sharing is massive over there. Local ride apps are hugely affordable compared to the UK equivalents like Uber. You've got healthcare and amenities and services. Basic healthcare in Vietnam, especially whether it's public or local private clinics, is quite cheap. More complex treatments can cost more, but it's still going to be typically lower than the UK private sector. And you'll get seen straight away because you're paying. Expats, they often buy insurance, which offers major coverage, and you can get this for about £50 a month, which sounds like a lot, but then if you think it covers dental, covers extreme medical, it's not that much to pay £600 a year to have all your health needs mostly met. Utilities, things like water, internet, and mobile phone are obviously going to be cheaper. There can be trade-offs. If you're rural, you sacrifice internet speed or coverage. They've got power cuts out there that are fairly frequent, a couple of times a month. But the standard of finishing in the houses and apartments that I've seen there absolutely spanks what I've seen in the UK for even a fraction of the price. So, and that brings me into lifestyle, the lifestyle and the quality of life trade offs. So, the pros to living there, you've got a wicked warm climate, you've got beautiful beaches, far lower cost of living, which then enables you to live more comfortably on a smaller income, potentially with a lot less stress about things like rent, bills. You've got a richer outdoor life, which is going to be way healthier, food, which is way healthier, hospitality, which is way more friendly. And the locals aren't dicks, which the same can't be said for many UK cities. The cons are things like sewage is a bit hit and miss depending on where you are. Air quality in certain seasons, a bit hit and miss. Distances to major airports can vary depending on where you are. Import costs of foreign goods is obviously very high. And there are varying standards of public services, again, depending on where you are. Now, in Da Nang, much of this doesn't apply because it is built up. The infrastructure there has been built with expansion and adaptation in mind. So whereby in the UK we've got infrastructure that's crumbling because it can't cope. There wasn't the anticipation in the Victorian era, when everything went industrial, of the volume of people that we've got using the infrastructure. In Da Nang, it's been built for that. It's been built with that purpose in mind. They've got, 6-lane motorways. They've done all of that. It's been thought of in advance. So the public services should be very good over there. Adapting to a different culture is going to be a little bit difficult. Sometimes there'll be a language barrier unless you gen up on your Vietnamese, which is quite difficult to learn, I'm confessing. And there might be occasional safety or bureaucratic red tape depending on the visa and residency status that you've got. But basically, if you're living in the UK on 30 grand a year, a big chunk of that is going on rent and bills. In Da Nang, you'll be able to maintain a similar quality of life with a 30 grand UK lifestyle with many of the same things, if not better services and better quality of life for around 10,000 a year. 15k if you want to be a baller. So if your UK income is higher, the savings will obviously grow because you can still maintain UK investments, UK bank account, but you've eliminated many of the UK costs. And that's amazing. So Da Nang is much cheaper than the UK for many things, most things, in fact. It's not a total swap. There is some lifestyle and convenience trades, which I'm going to have to make should I end up moving there. But to be fair, as long as I'm okay with this, I don't see much more of a downside. The visa thing is a ball ache, and it will be more of a ball ache as you get very old. But you don't have to stay there. There are other countries, and yeah, what are your thoughts on this? What would you do? Do you think that Vietnam is the right play? Are there better countries that you've been to that offer more than Vietnam? Drop it in the comments. Let me know. YouTube is going to put another video there. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. Another one tomorrow. Goldman, peace out.